Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And welcome to Justice Served TV. We are on the air of sorts. Hi, Linda Kenny Bodden. Michael Bryant here.
Hi, Michael Bryant. I feel like we just finished at 4 o'clock. Or
I know you did. I was definitely, lurking, as they say. But you were on and
all day,
on and back
all
and
day.
forth. Yeah, good for you.
Since 10 this morning, about 10 this morning. Can't do that every day, but today was kind of an interesting day. I kind of got sucked in, and then of course, my work is still sitting over here. So I have to.
Yeah, that's what the late night hours are for.
Yeah.
So we got a whole 5 witnesses. I'm not even sure. The last witness for the day, Mr. Whitley, is he done? I don't know if he's done because the day ended on a sidebar relating to a cross-examination question.
Right.
I don't know.
The judge said she was going to rule tomorrow, and it's something that Yannetti's fighting for as to whether the statement, all these statements after years now are just out of nowhere. Poof, they're appearing.
Well, I've noticed
magic.
I've only been up there at Dedham 6 times. Tomorrow will be 7, etc. I remember things I don't remember since I was a kid. I mean, things are just coming back to me, flooding back to me. It's just being up there in that area. Your memory, as time passes, gets so much better. It's amazing.
And it's amazing how it's only better for the prosecution. All these little snarky things become for the prosecution. Although today we did have a very interesting witness that we're going to talk about, because I want to talk about, I know you want to talk about the witness. I want to talk about why Judge Beverly Cannoni is not gravely concerned with some of the testimony today that came from the prosecution.
So she was not gravely concerned.
Yeah, that she was not gravely concerned. Right.
No. Now, what's the big deal if somebody changes their testimony, lies to the grand jury? Come on, get over it. What's wrong with you?
Right. Why should you have an affirmative duty, prosecution, to come forward and have it corrected? That should be grave concerns. But we'll get into that. I was so, as I said, being there for so many hours, I now understand why people are so upset about this case, because it's not just the case.
No, it's definitely the symptom of the bigger disease. So just to recap, we're on a whopping day number 2. We've had 5 witnesses, or at least up through 5. We've had 1 paramedic, Mr. Nutberger. We had Carrie Roberts, who we're going to focus on today. She began yesterday, finished today, and finished with a zing because it was primarily cross-examination. And then Nicholas Garino. Explain, let's open up the Justice Served TV classroom. Explain why Nicholas Garino, who is a Mass State Police guy who's the digital forensic expert, why we really just heard how wonderful he is at his job, and then he was excused.
Because I don't know. There must have been something that they wanted to get into, that the prosecution wants to get into in terms of introducing some text, but they don't want to introduce all his testimony for cross-examination right now. And apparently the defense agreed. So, I mean, that's what I assume, that there has to be something related to, him grabbing the phones and support. Remember, he took the phones, and there was testimony from the witnesses that we heard that the phones were given to him. So maybe that just supports the witness's testimony.
Yeah, some foundational information that has to play out with other witnesses before he comes back for the substance of his Cellbrite.
But everybody on the chat was like,
"You're like, what the hell is this?"
No, we're going to get to see Alessi. They were like, it's Alessi. People were running their computer. And they were like, that's it?
Yeah. And I think he did object. I think Alessi did object once or twice during the direct exam.
He's going to be fine.
He'll get his chance. But that, I just think a lot of people would look at that and go, what the hell is that about? And so
I think it was just a counter. It was just to bolster the fact that the cell phones were taken, as the other witnesses said they were.
Yep. So let's see other little tidbits before we get into the Carrie Roberts testimony, which is really the thrust of today. We thought we'd do these nightly recaps because it just seems to be more appropriate just to grab the stuff that's important, even if we just zoom through testimony and focus on it, rather than let it just kind of lie at the end of the given day. And obviously Carrie Roberts was key to today. She touched on so many things. She is a key witness. I think she's a bigger witness in round 2 than round 1 for the reasons we're going to talk about. But before we get to that, in the trifecta of federal cases that have been filed in the buffer zone, I'll call them the buffer zone cases, we know that the protesters had their temporary restraining order denied. That has gone up on appeal. The reporter,
That's the protesters who carrying the signs against Canoni but weren't saying anything.
yes, we hate Judge C, is basically the thrust of their protest. Then the journalist with Tom, CPU, and I, that was the second case filed. We also sought a TRO, and the judge did nothing. Remember, there are 3 cases, 3 judges. The third case, Mr. Delgado, the guy that had his sticker ripped off, separate case. 3 judges, 3 separate cases. So ours in case number 2, we filed a TRO. Judge did nothing. Pocket veto, as I call it. Nothing. So we tried to join in the amicus. I like to say amicus. Sometimes I'll say amicus. How do you say it?
Amicus.
Like amicus? Yeah, it's one of those.
Amicus.
I will say it either way because neither one is cemented in my brain is the right way. I'll have to check it out. Anyway, this brief would allow us to tag along with the protesters' current appeal, which is now being reviewed. The federal district court said no, that's on appeal. And then the state, who are the defendants in these cases, they filed a motion to stay our case while this number 1 case and the TRO issue is pending. We oppose that. We want to force our judge. It's a woman. I can't remember her name. I apologize. But we want her to do her job and rule. But they're basically sitting back and saying, no, let's follow what happens in case number 1 with the protesters. So we are stayed from doing anything until May 14th. Won't affect what happens on the ground there. But just procedurally, that's where we are. We're not getting any relief until at least May 14th. It could be sooner if the appellate court on the protester case, if they rule before the 14th. The reason that the stay was put in place to May 14th is because briefs are due May 10th. And so they're giving 10 days past the date of the briefings to give that court a chance to come to a decision. And then we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out and trickles down to us poor little, reporter case. It's number 2 on the list.
Well, I think if you get arrested for being in the buffer zone
I wonder
while you're
how that
there
would impact
tomorrow
you.
or Friday, that could be an interesting issue, right?
Well, I do know that Mark
there was
Randazza,
somebody.
our attorney, there was somebody arrested, Boa, and it was like Cher, just one name, I'm not sure. Yes, Boa was arrested, and if you haven't seen that video, you should check it out because it's outrageous. But Mark Randazza, our attorney, has already suggested the need to amend our complaints if, in fact, something does happen when Tom and I are operating in our news gathering capacity. So
Right.
we'll see. I got some new toys to help with my news gathering. I got
Okay,
this
let's
ready to
see.
go. I got that.
That looks like some kind of horrible obstetrical thing.
Okay, just open wide.
And that's explain what that is. You put your
This is-
iPhone
yeah,
on it. It's a gimbal.
Yeah, this is I always forget what it's called. It's not an Omni, but it's basically a gyro. You put your thingy on here. You put your thingy on. That's a technical term. Your thingy. Put that right on here like that. There we go. And then when you turn it on, it gets all gyro-y, and you can go from vertical like that, or with a quick click, you go like that.
Okay.
And basically, it gives you a little more smooth operation of your news gathering operation. And even better, I can plug the mic into here, and so we get some
Oh, that's even
pretty
better.
decent
That's better.
sound. Yeah. So
That is even better. That's terrific. I wish you had your holographic sticker that said Justice Serve TV. That
I
you
know.
put
I
on
don't.
it though, that you could buy at our
I
merchandise
should get
store.
one.
Yeah, because really,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they're there for.
I
if
do
you
have.
don't-
Hold on. I do have. These are not quite as good, but I do have like that. I can put that on there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You should. I think you should at least put that on.
I mean,
yeah.
it's got our pictures on the bottom. See that?
There you are. There you are.
And there you are. Yes. Okay. That's a good idea.
Well, I won't be arrested with you. I'll be playing poker.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry. I won't bother you. There, I'm going to put that right on there. Okay. Anyway, so we'll see what happens with that whole thing tomorrow. It'll be midday before I get there, so who knows? They may not care. I will say that the BOA arrest, I'll call it, happened at the time the parties were arriving. So I'm assuming that when they arrive and when they leave, they tighten things up.
Right.
Don't know. Just my speculation.
Probably that's the case. I did see that you're allowed to go up to the buffer zone until 8 a.m. in the morning. I guess that's when people start arriving, and then they started enforcing it. So because they had pictures of people who are expressing their First Amendment in the buffer zone until 8 a.m. and then they have to leave. So, but the question is, that's I mean, it's so ridiculous because you could have. I was thinking about this. You could have like I don't have it, but a long range camera, right? Like the sports people use, be sitting down there at the and still get the same picture you get if you have an iPhone and you're sitting 10 feet away.
Well, I think, and I've given them the benefit of the doubt. I don't agree with them, but I think their concern is bodies, flooding that area, causing some sort of concern for the players. If you're distant enough, I don't think they're trying to protect that. In theory, if you had a drone, which they would probably shoot down, you're not going to be impeding them. So I get a little bit of that. I just think it has to be more properly controlled. So we'll find out because I'll definitely be there tomorrow when they're leaving.
Right.
And that's when I would be wanting to get some video and throw out a question, right?
Right. And see if we can get an interview, perhaps with one of the, well, we can't get an interview, right? Because they're under a gag order.
No, just Karen Reed.
Just
I thought
Karen
somebody
Reed.
said she did an interview with one of the, I think it was a Boston station. Have you heard that? A new interview?
No, I haven't because I've been busy trying
Yeah,
to keep covering this and trying to get my own work done and all. But we're going to be on the air about 1 o'clock tomorrow. You'll definitely be on the air checking it out. I hope to join you there. I'll be traveling on the roadways from about 10. I should be stationary to be. So we're trying to get it so that we can start. We'll be streaming, actually. Missy's going to be streaming what's going on tomorrow morning. Then
I think
we'll listen.
And I'll join, again, depending on the timing of everything, both tomorrow during the break and then Friday morning, either live from the scene with, our Justice Serve mobile unit.
Right.
Or I'll be planted somewhere near the courthouse. I know I cannot park in the buffer zone. They definitely will not.
Right. Oh, yes. Yeah. So, but we're going to be on there anyhow. So Missy's going to be streaming starting at I guess 9. She'll be streaming. She doesn't have to be there. I mean, hopefully she can stream and not have to sit at her desk all day. We'll get on at 1 to answer questions, and then we'll see what kind of video and what you're going to gather. Until 4 o'clock, I gather. We'll see what happens at the end.
Yeah, and then again on scheduling, Friday's been back and forth because now the ARC experts who are going to be voir dired to some degree to satisfy the court about whatever concerns she has. That was going to happen Friday, but to one of them, I can't remember, Wolf or Rentschler, not available. That's been pushed to Monday, so they're going to have a half day on Friday, and there's been no more talk of A View, which was originally scheduled for Friday. So they're just doing a half day on Friday. So we'll be up there for that. And then I've got Miss Shorty who will be joining. We may just end up doing an end of day, midday. We'll just see how
you'll see what it is. Yep, see what goes on. I won't feel as bad than leaving you, but you're in good hands with Lisa Shorty.
Oh, yeah. I'm not bothered. I'm not worried. Yeah. May you have, I feel lucky to have her. May you have as much luck playing poker.
Yeah, I play these games, as everyone knows, not for money during the week, with friends, and me and 88 of my closest women friends came in second the other night, and then last night with a bunch of lawyers from Washington D.C. Again, it was just for bragging rights. I came in first, so I'm feeling good about playing in a tournament Friday. I just tuned up.
Yeah. Let's dive into the cross-examination here of Ms. Roberts. And for those who can't remember, she's a good friend, seemingly better friend of Jen McCabe than she was last trial. But because they bonded over this traumatic event and the 8 bazillion phone calls and meetings since that time. And again, she is a proud graduate of the Jen McCabe School of Witness Preparation. I believe she got about a B. There are a couple of things she didn't do as well as she might have. But she was definitely prepped. And we have the cross, which of course is critical and most critical of any witness. I don't care who's proffering that witness, but the cross is always where you get the truth. Is that right? Am I right about that?
Well, it's certainly where you can suss things out from the direct as whether they were truthful. And this was a big suss. Remember, she was not cross-examined in the first trial.
Good morning, Ms. Roberts. How are you?
Good morning.
Under questioning by Mr. Brennan, you talked about a number of times that you have spoken to the DA's office or some member of the DA's office. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about that.
Sure.
How many times in total do you think you've spoken to a representative of the district attorney's office?
I don't have a number.
Would you say it's more than a dozen?
Yes.
Would you say it's more than 50?
Maybe around there.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay, hold it. 50 times? 50?
50.
It's been
And-
roughly a year since the beginning of the first trial. I did a little math. 50 times spread out over the course. That's like every 9.2 days. Every 9.2 days, you're talking to somebody from. That's unbelievable to me. I'm sorry.
And I'll bet you there aren't 50 reports, but you know.
Of course.
Less.
And who are the folks, Ms. Roberts, that you have spoken to at the DA's office?
Steve Nelson,
Okay.
the victim advocate, Yuri Buchanan, who's a state police officer, and the DA, Michael Morrissey.
And what was the, I want to take those in order, and two of those are at the DA's office. One of those is not. Yuri Buchanan is not at the DA's office. He's actually a Massachusetts State Police officer. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Let's take those in order. How many times would you say you've spoken to Mr. Nelson? Just if you can give me a thumbnail.
I don't know, maybe 30, 40.
Okay. Have you received what you would consider to be updates on the progress of the case? From Mr.
I would
Nelson?
ask questions, and he would give me very broad answers.
Okay. Were your questions ever prompted by conversations that you had with your friend, Miss McCabe, Jen McCabe?
Sometimes Jen would say, could you ask Steve this? Because I had a rapport with Steve.
Okay. Were those conversations by text message or phone calls or both?
I would usually text him.
Okay.
Stop.
What about...
Hold on. We got a text. Yes, text.
I
question.
wonder if all those texts have been turned over.
Yeah, where are they?
Every single text has been, I wonder if every single text has been turned over. Okay.
I wish I knew that as well, because they should be. You know that. She's got to have some sort of ethical obligation as a human being.
The conversation with, or conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected district attorney, what were the circumstances under which you contacted Mr. Morrissey?
Well, during the course of this trial, the witnesses have been harassed.
That's not my question.
Objection.
But I'm answering your question.
Hold on. I'm going to sustain the objection. Next question.
Thank you. Were you phoning him? Were you meeting him? Were you texting him? That's my question. The circumstances of the communication itself.
I phoned the office asking for a meeting, had a meeting, and then he left a voicemail at some point and texted me and said, I just left you a voicemail.
Okay. Was that the extent of your conversations with Mr. Morrissey, the elected DA?
I had one other meeting with other witnesses
Okay.
and the DA.
And turning to Yuri Buchanan, what were the logistics? I'll use that word instead of circumstances. What were the logistics of you contacting Yuri Buchanan? Was it by phone? Was it in-person meetings, text messages, or all of the above? All of the above.
All of the above.
How many times would you say that you've spoken with Yuri Buchanan?
Spoken or communicated?
Sorry, good point. Communicated with.
Probably 20.
Okay. When was the last time? Actually, let me ask you a different question. Have you ever met with Mr. Brennan before your testimony today?
Yes.
What was the circumstance of that meeting?
Going over my testimony from the last trial.
Okay.
And sort of just asking questions on what might come this time. Would I be cross-examined? I wasn't last time. Just sort of, all the things went through my testimony.
Okay. When was that meeting?
I don't know, in the last couple of weeks. I don't know.
Okay. Where was the meeting?
At the DA's office.
Who else was there?
Different times that I would meet with him, Steve Nelson would be there. One time, Brian Tully was there. Mr. Brennan's assistant.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Brennan's assistant.
Okay.
I don't know. Adam Lally and Laura McLaughlin.
Were those meetings, you said there was 2 meetings? Or did I misunderstand you?
Yeah, I think there were 2.
Okay. Were those close in time to one another? You mentioned 2 weeks ago. Were those both 2
I
weeks
said a few weeks ago, but the other meeting was just before I was going to testify.
Meaning, what, yesterday, the day before?
Last week.
Was that also at the DA's office?
Yes, it was.
Were you shown anything at that meeting?
Was I shown anything?
Videos, testimony, transcripts,
No.
reports?
No.
Nothing?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We went over my testimony on the screen, and then I just talked about my testimony from the last time.
Okay, so imagine this gathering, right? All of the prosecution team, for the most part, and they're going over her video direct examination, all that she provided in trial 1, and they're fixing her. You know, they're telling her what to anticipate in cross-examination, right?
Right.
Having seen her during cross-examination, I'm not so sure they got her really prepared for what was to come.
Well, the problem I have is that you're now setting the stage for all these people there who are talking about her cross-examination. Somebody had to anticipate about the answers in front of the grand jury we're going to hear about.
You would think.
And no one has apparently corrected the record before she got on the stand.
And one thing that makes your point is that you don't have an answer for a clear, blatant lie that sounds like, I guess I misunderstood the question. That is a prepared, coached answer. That is not something you come up with on your own. As an aside, I heard Judge Bev, after somebody objected, did you hear her catch herself? She said, what are the grounds for the objection?
Right.
She caught herself
She
because
caught
her
herself,
dumb rule won't allow it.
Okay. When you say you went over your testimony on screen, what do you mean?
We watched my testimony from the first trial on a TV screen.
Okay, so you were shown something. You were shown a video of your prior testimony.
Yes.
So I'd like to see counsel at sidebar for just a minute, please.
Just as
So-
Alan gets going, she
And,
interrupts him.
She interrupts him. You have to assume that has something to do with some guardrails they've put up about talking about the first trial. What's your speculation?
That's whatever they are, or guardrails, whatever they are. But I really want to. How could you put up guardrails if somebody is going to admit to telling a falsehood, or as Alan would say, that was false, that was a lie, and we're going to hear what was a lie. It's pretty important.
Yeah. Okay. So post Sidebahhh. You see, this is Alan setting up this video clip.
But Alan really worked hard on this cross-examination.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. Other than watching your testimony, were you shown anything else? Transcripts, videos that you may have seen today, dash cam videos, anything like that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think I was shown anything.
Okay. Did you discuss other parts of your prior testimony?
Yes.
Okay. What was discussed concerning your prior testimony and how it would impact how you testify today on direct examination?
Mr. Brennan had just asked me, can you just tell me what happened? So I told him the story verbally.
Okay. Anything come up about specific instances of how you were going to testify today
No.
or yesterday?
No.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit, Ms. Roberts, about the video that you were shown by Mr. Brennan. It's the dash cam video of Officer Seraph. I'm not sure if you know which officer that is.
No, I don't.
It's the one that you've been watching.
Okay.
That dash cam that shows your car in the foreground.
Yep.
I'd like to ask you a couple of quick questions about your memory of that incident, and then perhaps show you the video depending upon what the answer is.
Sure.
Do you remember when the officer first arrived, you and Miss Reed specifically were at Mr. O'Keefe's body?
Yes.
Where was Miss McCabe at that moment?
She was there too, but she was waving down the first responders because it was dark out and he couldn't see us. He had a spotlight.
You and Miss Reed were both providing some level of CPR, some level of life-saving efforts.
Yes, as was Miss McCabe.
What was Miss McCabe doing?
When I was doing chest compressions and Karen was doing mouth-to-mouth, Jen was either on the phone with 911 or handing me baby blankets.
Okay.
At some point, she did take over doing chest compressions because I asked her to.
Okay. So Miss Reed was focused on Mr. O'Keefe's head, face area.
Correct.
You were focused on the chest.
Correct.
Miss McCabe was, at some point at least, she had called 911 or dialed 911.
Yes.
When Miss McCabe dialed 911 and was on the phone with 911, isn't it true that she was actually in a vehicle at the time?
That is not true.
She was outside?
She was outside.
That's your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Have you heard the 911 tape of that call?
Yes.
Okay. You're aware that that tape was also captured by an open line on Miss Reed's phone?
Yes.
That open line that phone was dropped inside the cab of an SUV?
It was in the back seat, I believe.
Right. So in order for that for that open line to capture sort of the background of Miss McCabe's side of the 911 call, Miss
Yep.
McCabe would have had to have been either at or in the cab of the truck?
The back of the SUV was open. She was standing there.
Got it. Okay, so she was right next to or adjacent to the cab of the SUV.
She was in back of it with the back was up.
I see, that back hatch?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember Miss Reed's statement, her initial statement to Officer Seraph when he got out of his patrol
I do
car?
not.
Do you remember her saying something to the effect of, "My boyfriend, I left him, he never came home"?
I do not.
Okay. Have you listened with audio to that dash cam at the moment that Officer Seraph arrives at the scene and y'all flag him down?
We just watched it.
Right. Have you listened to it for the audio side? I mean, in other words, instead of focusing on the
no.
video.
No.
Okay. I'd like to ask you to do that with the court's permission. This is it's been previously marked as Exhibit 4. And with the court's permission, I'd like to play that from runtime about 3:50 and ask the witness to concentrate most readily at about 4:07, maybe
Okay.
10 seconds into it. I'm going to give a little run up and then ask you to listen very
Okay.
closely to the audio.
Yep.
This was far less
With the court's
effective than I
permission?
thought
Yes.
it would be.
Okay, Evan. Stop. Do you recognize the video as being the same video that you saw and you looked at on direct examination?
Yes.
Okay. In just a quick second, the door to the car, you're going to hear it open. I'd like to ask you to pay special attention to the audio portion and Miss Reed's voice,
Okay.
if you can hear it. Go ahead. Stop. Did you hear that last statement?
No.
Did you hear a woman's voice kind of faint in the background?
I heard a voice, but I didn't make out what she was saying.
Okay. Did it sound like she said, "My boyfriend, I dropped him off and he never came home"?
Objection.
Could you hear that, Ms. Roberts?
No.
Okay.
Next question.
That's all I have for the video. We can take that down. You talked about, on direct examination, some of the injuries that you saw Mr. O'Keefe having suffered, both what you observed at the scene and then what you observed later at the hospital.
Yep.
And speaking of injuries, Michael Brown, why don't
And
we
you noted
stop
those injuries.
this?
Yep, that's
Why
a good
don't
idea.
we stop this right now? And I'm going to tell the people that are watching that we're going to get to the prevarication, the admission that there is a misrepresentation to the grand jury. Some will call it a lie and all in a bit. But we're going to build up to it because we're going to stop at injuries because we have a very special guest with us who's not going to talk about this case specifically. But Chris Fabricant is the person who knows more about bite mark evidence, also called forensic odontology, probably in the world. All right, he's written a great book called Junk Science. You can get it on all sorts of any place, Amazon, wherever you look it up. We put it on our website, on our little YouTube streaming site. And also, he does know that the setup to this was that the prosecution wanted to do dental molds on a German Shepherd who has aged several years to show that even if these marks on the decedents in the hands, in this case, arms and hands, in this case, were from a German Shepherd, that they can tell through dog forensic odontology that this German Shepherd is specifically excluded by measurement. So I just want to have Chris Fabricant, give him a big welcome. He's going to be professorial, and he's going to talk to you about forensic odontology generally and why it's junk science. Now, you can differentiate a dog bite from a something else, from a whack or whatever, but that's not what we're talking here. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Chris.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's all hogwash, and I'm not convinced that you could differentiate between a dog bite and some other bites. So even at that threshold level.
That's really interesting on it. But tell us about forensic odontology. You have, in your work with the Innocence Project, you have obviously are responsible for getting a lot of people out of prison who have actually gotten the death penalty for bite mark evidence. You and also my friend who's now a judge, Chris Plord in San Diego, was one of the forefront leaders in this. But you really have been the leader in taking it to the courts. Where does it stand, and why would a prosecutor, knowing all this, try to use dog forensic odontology in these days?
Prosecutors will, introduce whatever the judges and the courts will allow, and sadly, forensic odontology is still allowed by many, many courts around the country. With that said, though, last summer, Justice Sotomayor said in a published opinion and a concurring opinion in one of my cases, Charles McCory out of Alabama, that, this evidence has been entirely discredited, and I have 3 clients on death row right now, all put there through bite mark evidence. And there have been nearly 40 wrongful convictions and indictments attributable to the use of, so-called bite mark evidence. And really what you think about is that, trying to interpret an injury on skin, particularly in a homicide case, is that what the forensic dentist or the forensic pathologist or whomever it is that's going to come in and take a look at this evidence is going to do it long after these injuries were inflicted. So skin is an ever-changing medium, right? If somebody who's matches one day, might not match the next day, hour to hour, day to day, week to week, they're just capturing a moment in time that's going to be constantly changing. And you don't know the way that the arm was held when it was actually inflicted. So you think about it, the dog bit, or a person bit when the injury was like this, and then you take the photograph when the arm is extended, it's going to look completely different. So this is always just kind of gross speculation. And having competing experts in this type of case is just 2 people arguing about how flat the earth is.
Wow.
It seems to be that they must have had absolutely no DNA from a bite, because that would be so much easier and better.
I mean, even the forensic dentists will tell you, even the last of the Mohicans that are still holding on to this last shreds of this totally discredited technique will tell you, all of them will tell you, number one, swab it for DNA evidence, right? Because DNA evidence is a real science, unlike the voodoo of forensic odontology. So I have been getting a lot of emails about the Karen Reed trial because they're like, hey, Fabricant, do you know that they're trying to bring this in this trial and it's a dog bite evidence? And then I looked at it and I was like, that they literally took a dentition of a dog where there's no database, what the evidence shows, right? The forensic dentists who actually look at this stuff and day after day, week after week, they cannot reliably diagnose an injury as a bite mark, period, right? To say nothing of associating with anybody. So the idea that some expert could say that, oh, this was made by these teeth or that teeth is crazy, because you can't even say that what instrument was actually used to create the injury.
Interesting, because the judge did say to the prosecution, you do have an uphill road to get the fact that these teeth are specific to Chloe, the German Shepherd, in this case. Talk to us about the fact about the specificity where anyone's trying to get specific to a specific, where you may be able to say it's dog bite, but specific through measurements of forensic odontology.
Again, I don't think that you could even say definitively that it's a dog bite. What you had, they did a Daubert hearing in this case, right? And if you think about what's required for a Daubert hearing, right? One is testability, right? Somebody claims that that's a dog bite. How are we supposed to falsify that? We have no idea. We're just going to have to take your word for it. Okay, well, let's take your word for it. You're supposed to have an error rate, right? So how often do you get it right? And how often do you get it wrong when you claim something is a dog bite as compared to something else? No idea, right? So it's not a testable hypothesis. We don't know what error rates are. There is no peer-reviewed literature, not any real literature. There are some people that have written a little bit about this. It's totally rejected by the scientific community, and it's not maintained by any standards whatsoever, right? So it flunks every single one of the Dauber tests. So I was shocked that it was going to be let in at all.
Oh yeah, yeah, and we're not even factoring in dogs who have an Invisalign and they correct their bite over time. So
Right,
what about, you know, I'm sure in all of your experience studying, reporting on, analyzing dog bites, the victim always stands perfectly still so that the dog can make the best impression on the wound, right?
Right. You know, this is the point that I was making earlier, you know, I mean, is that, you know, bites of any kind from be it dog or human is inflicted almost always during a violent struggle where, you know, I mean, I think a lot of your viewers, you know, I mean, you'd be thinking that they have an idea of what a bite mark looks like in their mind because they have toddlers that come home from daycare and say, Johnny bit me, right? And it looks like a bite, right? But that's never the way they look in casework. It looks like in this Karen Reed case. You know, you could say like one person saying it's from a car, you know, another saying it from a dog. Who's to say who's right? You know, I mean, without DNA evidence, you know, it's all speculation. There's no expert witness testimony that is going to advance this idea, right? Because the search for the truth is never advanced through junk science.
Right. As a matter of fact, as one of our mods points out, though, there was no Daubert hearing for Dr. Crosby, that's the Collins expert, who took the dog bite impressions, and you know, and he's not even a forensic dentist. I mean, let's even get to that level. He's like somebody who trains dogs, a former police officer trains dogs, and all.
You know, what is it about somebody that's a dentist, though, really, or a dog trainer, that would have any expertise on interpreting an injury on skin? None. Zero. What is the proximity to teeth? The proximity to dogs? It's crazy. You're just claiming this expertise because it's like, I'm near dogs. I know what dogs look like. I've seen a lot of dog bites. That's nonsense. It's the same kind of expertise that dentists were claiming. And it was just like, what is it about doing root canals that makes you an expert at examining a bite mark? Nothing, right? You're being hoodwinked.
Interesting. The whole thing is interesting. So the client that you have now on death row, where do their cases stand with bite mark evidence?
Well, we have Jimmy Chris Duncan is on death row in Angola, one of the most notorious, outrageous prisons in the United States in Louisiana. It's literally a former slave plantation. And right now, today, there are white men on horseback with shotguns overseeing black men in chains picking cotton, you know what I mean, right now, you know what I mean, in Louisiana. So he's there on bite mark evidence that was created by the notorious Dr. West and a forensic pathologist that was also equally notorious named Stephen Hain, who put him on death row, and he's been there for over 30 years. We have a client in Ohio, Danny Lee Hills, put there by bite mark evidence. And we have Jimmy Rogers in Georgia, all of whom were, whose cases relied on bite mark evidence. You know, and I've been personally involved in 10 exonerations involving people that were put there through bite mark evidence. You know, and Charles McCory, the innocent man in Alabama who's serving life without parole, was the case that Justice Sotomayor wrote about, you know, last summer. So we're still fighting for, you know, his freedom in federal court right now. So, you know, you could see the legacy of junk science. What I worry about in a case like Karen Reed's or any of these cases that are very high profile, if you look at it, a case that you're familiar with, Linda, you know, I mean, is the Casey Anthony case, right?
Right.
Is like in this very high profile case, they were managed to get in despite a very well litigated case by you, is that the smell of death, right? And that was allowed into evidence as scientific evidence, which is total nonsense.
Right,
Still today, total nonsense, but now it's part of case law. So courts will still use it,
right,
even though there's no scientific backing.
Yeah.
So you get a case like this, you know, and there is like Mr. Shifazari, is in Massachusetts, spent 37 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit in Massachusetts. That was done entirely by bite mark evidence by Dick Souveron, right? The same guy who testified in the Ted Bundy case. So
And,
what I
and
worry
is he
about,
out? Is he out the man in Massachusetts?
yeah,
Yeah, he's
Michael
out, right? That's
Sidebahhh.
recently. He's one of your clients recently exonerated, I guess, in the past 2 years, I think, if I
Yeah,
recall.
it was the New England Innocence Project that did that. I was not
Yeah.
involved in that case, but he was an innocent man, wrongfully convicted through bite mark evidence. And what I worry about in a case like this, is that where they're going to allow in some sort of dog bite evidence, and we're going to create legal precedent that where people aren't watching the same way that they're watching the Karen Reed case, and it's going to sneak into court because it's been introduced before now, and it'll wrongfully convict somebody.
This, I think, is a different twist on things, Chris. Give me your take on this. Here we have the defense proponent that is going to be arguing that it is bite mark, and in fact has forced the prosecution to come up with their own expert that got it by doing a couple of seminars on YouTube, I think.
Right.
But differently in that it's not a prosecutor trying to pin a bite on a defendant. It's a defendant using it to come up with a different cause of the injuries to the victim.
Well, the ethics are a lot different because a defense attorney is ethically required to defend their client as zealously as the law will allow. And the law is allowing this, so I'm not faulting the defense for doing their constitutionally obligated duty. What I'm faulting is the courts for allowing subjective speculation masquerading as scientific evidence in front of a jury, so I,
Even to entertain the issue of whether or not a mold was going to be allowed, a mold of a denture of a dog. I mean, that to me, that was like out of control.
It's great. Yeah. What the prosecution was trying to do is totally bananas. You can imagine, as a, there's no expertise that is being used in this case that will advance the search for the truth. There just isn't, because there's no evidence that these experts can do what they claim to be able to do.
That's interesting. That's the real ethical issue. Of course, you really shine the light on this. I'm going to have everyone look up the New England case. Could you say the name again? So our mods can
Shifazari is Chifarizi, something like that. I'm probably not getting it perfect, but it's in the book.
Gotta be close. Yeah.
It's in your book. And your book's name again?
Junk Science in the American Criminal Justice System.
Thank
Beautiful.
you.
Such interesting stuff, man. It's no matter how it's used, it is fascinating. And I guess it's only time before we see if somebody's going to take a stand against this and maybe hopefully put you out of business.
That's what I'm here for, right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating the way that a car accident is fascinating.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Chris
Thanks,
Fabricant,
sir.
Really a hero, getting all these people that were wrongfully convicted out of prison. Very, very interesting analysis. I mean, the analysis is that he thinks that dog bite evidence is junk science, period.
Yeah,
And
no matter who's using it. But I'm envisioning the theater of the prosecution with their mold, their
that's
Chloe
me too.
mold. Oh
Right.
my God. I'm all for props. I'm all for demonstrative stuff. I think it's going to be powerful, and it's going to take a lot to totally negate it in front of the jury.
No, that's what I'm concerned about too, because I think you can easily say, the forensic pathologist can easily say that the car didn't cause the injuries on John O'Keefe because he didn't have any injuries in the front of him. That's easy. So the question becomes, what could be the alternative? The defense has an alternative theory, but then the prosecution goes out and wants to take this complete junk science of putting moles on people's teeth to the exclusion of all other animals in the universe.
And so it's really a fascinating wrinkle in this part two to this case, because some jurors may say, they're sure fighting hard to prove that Chloe didn't do that. And, they've given, by doing their mold, they've given some credit to identifying a dog bite on somebody, right?
Right.
And I mentioned it earlier during some of the live testimony that I'm not so sure that doesn't backfire on the prosecution.
I agree with you. But I think we have a duty here at Just Observe TV to bring you what the real science is, what junk science is. As we said, we take no stands except for the stand for the truth. And that's what's happening out there in the real world, that people are getting put in death row for this whole idea that you can have a mold, a dental mold, and then measure a wound, from humans to humans, then put somebody in jail to the exclusion of everybody else in the world.
Yeah, that you have to imagine that is a Hail Mary prosecution move, and it's scary how often it seems to work.
Yep, that's concerning.
Yikes. Okay, so
Yikes.
let's see
Okay.
if I can get back into this, if I can hit the right button, because you know me, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, I'd love to find where she talks about her grand jury, obviously.
Okay, well, let's see. Let me do this.
Correct?
Say it again?
You noted those injuries. Those were
Yes.
You made note of those,
Yes.
or at least some of them. You said that you saw a hematoma of some sort over his right eye. Is that right?
Correct.
And there was some significant swelling to his right eye
Correct.
at the scene.
Correct.
Did you also notice a laceration just above his right eye, just under the eyebrow?
I saw it at the hospital, but I don't know if at the scene I saw it.
Fair enough. At some point, you saw that laceration to his right eye?
Yes, I did.
Did you also see a laceration to the left side of his nose, a smaller laceration to the left side of his nose?
I don't recall. I know there was blood coming from here, but I don't know if it was coming from inside his nose or from a laceration. I don't know.
When you said here, you're pointing to the left side of your nostril.
Yes.
And basically just above the nostril, correct?
Yes, right around the nostril, there was blood coming this way.
Okay. Draining to the left side of his cheek?
Yes.
Okay. You also saw, once you got to the hospital, that his left eye had swollen as well.
Now, both eyes were swollen and filled with what looked like blood.
And his left eye was black as well as his right eye.
Correct.
Okay. You also indicated that you saw, well, actually, I don't know if you did or not, so I don't want to put words in your mouth. I apologize. Did you see his right arm?
I did.
Did it appear to you that he had some abrasions or lacerations, parallel abrasions and lacerations and punctures on his right arm?
They were scratches.
Scratches. Ms. Roberts, you've previously testified that when you arrived, let me take you back instead of jumping right into it. After you met up with Ms. Reed at Jen McCabe's house that morning, so this is just after 5 o'clock or so, the three of you arrived back at One Meadows, correct? Is that right? I'm sorry.
Correct.
Okay. You're trailing the Lexus SUV, correct?
Correct.
The Lexus pulls in to the driveway and you pull in directly behind Ms. Reed and Jennifer McCabe is driving.
Correct.
You're driving your SUV, correct?
Correct.
You've previously testified that when you arrived at One Meadows at that moment, that once that SUV, the Lexus SUV, had pulled in and you pulled in behind the Lexus, you got out of the Lexus, sorry, you got out of your SUV, they got out of the Lexus, and that's a point at which Karen showed you the back of her taillight and said something to the effect of, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you think I hit him? Do you recall that?
I recall saying I didn't know if it was when we were coming or going, but she did point out the taillight.
Okay. When you previously testified under oath, your quote was, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her.
Mr. Jackson,
It happens a lot.
give page and line numbers when
Yes.
offering statements.
Sure. It's the SGJ, the grand jury, page 58, lines 14 through 19 for court and counsel.
Okay, now we get to the grand jury stuff.
Did you testify, quote, Karen pulls in and I pull in behind her, period. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the car saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? Question mark. End quote. Is that how you testified?
May I see it?
Sure.
She thinks he's lying when he reads it.
Or she's trying to see a way out of it.
Again, she does a good job at buying time. I will tell you that.
I apologize, I've already got it up here.
Does it have a date on it, Mr. Jackson?
It does. (4/26/22). May I approach?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Everything happened in April with this
Thank
case. Just different years.
Do you have the pages after this?
Oh,
I'm sure I do.
Because in the pages after this, I say,
My question, Ms. Roberts, is that a quote that I just said? Is that accurate? Do you see it in the?
yes, it is.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Don't get snippy. You can see she's already getting a little annoyed and hasn't really even gotten to the good stuff yet.
Right. Amelia Walsh, thank you very much. Straight from Jen McCabe's playbook. Yeah.
Your Honor, may I approach
Yes.
one more time? Thank you. Just for reference, I'm going to show you both pages. That's the page I asked you to look at, and then the following page as well. Please take your time.
Okay.
Yeah, we got nothing else to do. Take your time. While she's looking, I will remind folks, if you just joined us, you just missed an amazing interview with a bite expert, right?
Forensic odontology expert. Right?
Yes, that's easier for you to say. So we'll cut that and repost that. It's just fascinating how what he does applies to the.
What I'm looking for is still not here, because I did say I wasn't sure if it was
Yes.
before or after.
Ms. Roberts, you do have to wait for questions.
Okay.
When you gave this testimony, you were in front of a grand jury, correct?
I'm not sure which one that is.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury on April 26th, 2022?
Yes.
Okay, about 2 years ago.
Yes.
3 years ago. You were under oath at the time. Is that right?
Yes.
Things were fresher in your mind at that time than they are now, 3.5 years later, I'm guessing, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh,
You were asked the question to describe the circumstance when you arrived at One Meadows. Is that right?
Yes.
And the answer that you gave was, quote, we pulled into it's a driveway, there's two cars, and then two cars, then a single, so John's car is there. Karen pulls in, and I pull in behind her. When we get out, and Karen is now showing us the back of the back of the car, saying, my taillight, do you think I hit him? Do you think I hit him? Oh my God, do you guys think I hit him? That was your testimony at the time, correct?
Yes.
And just to be clear, I'd like to take a look at a quick video that you may or may not have seen before. We'll find out. Your Honor, I'd like to have this. Actually, this has already been previously marked as Exhibit 12C as in Charlie,
Okay.
and it's a short clip. So I'll play the entire clip with the court's permission.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and take a look at that video.
Remember, the grand jury testimony was roughly 3 months after the incident.
Can you pause? Do you recognize what's depicted in the video?
Yeah, that's when we arrived at John's house.
Okay. And who's the person with the plaid red pants?
That is Jen.
And who's the person that's just rounding the back of the car in front?
That is Karen.
What is the car in front?
That's Karen's SUV.
That's the Lexus SUV.
Yes, it is.
Behind that Lexus SUV, Ms. Roberts, is there another car?
That's my car.
And who's getting out of that car?
I am.
Okay. And this is the point that you were describing at least in the grand jury testimony at that time.
Yes.
This is the time that you're describing.
That I thought it was when we walked in.
This is the time that you were describing, right? When you arrive at the scene.
Yes.
Or, arrive at One Meadows.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and play this through. Okay. You can stop it. And you can bring the lights up. You saw the interaction between all three of you and the vehicles, correct?
Yep.
At any point, did anybody stop and take a look at the taillight or the rear end of the car?
Not when we were entering the house like I thought, but when we came out.
Okay. And there's no video of that?
I'm sorry?
There's no video of that?
No, I don't believe so.
Right. So the video that does exist describes nearly exactly the time that you testified that y'all stopped at the back of the taillight and Karen said, look, my taillight's broken. Oh my God, do you think I hit him?
Correct.
Right? Okay. And that obviously was incorrect.
It was incorrect.
So your memory was faulty about that incident, that part of that incident at least.
It happened on the way out of the house.
So your memory was faulty about that part of the incident that you testified to at the grand jury.
Yes.
Okay.
This is a brilliant cross-examination, by the way. Takes a lot of time to set it up.
So now the jury's thinking, well,
You
let's see the
were
video.
interviewed on January 29th. You've already testified to that, correct? By
Yes.
Troopers Dunn and my memory's failing me now.
There were two. I don't know who they were.
Okay, I'm sure it's in my notes somewhere. Two individuals that interviewed you on January 29th, correct?
Yes.
Obviously, things were very, very fresh in your mind at that point.
Yes, but I believe I was in shock. So,
The incident had just happened.
yes.
Okay, and you were asked to recount certain of the specifics about the incident that you had just experienced, not days or weeks, but just hours before, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you did your best, I'm sure, Ms. Roberts, to be as full-throated as possible, to provide them with as much detailed information as you could, and to be as honest as you could.
Yes.
I mean, you weren't going to lie to these police officers, right?
No.
A lot of setup here.
Full-throated.
In your very first conversation with those two troopers on January 29th, you didn't mention anything about a taillight or a cracked taillight, or
No,
even
I
having
did not.
seen a cracked taillight, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I
You
didn't
then-
want to accuse anybody of anything.
You were then interviewed on February 1st, 2022, a few days later, correct?
I don't know.
Does that
I
sound
don't know
right?
the exact date. I was interviewed again, but I don't know the exact date.
Okay. During your interview, let me withdraw that and ask a different question. On February 1st, or whatever day it was, the subsequent time that you were interviewed just a few days later, you did then, for the first time, describe the taillight that you saw, correct?
I don't know.
Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at a report?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so she looks at the report.
That you were interviewed.
Everybody watches her looking at the report. You have issues too with showing the gallery when they're down moments.
I
right?
have big issues showing the gallery, especially when they're done. Big issues. especially
Did
the
Connor
mother-
Keefe write that report?
Trooper Kathleen Prince wrote the report.
Okay.
Does that matter? No?
Nope.
Okay. Does that refresh your recollection that you did discuss the taillight at that time?
Yes.
And did you tell Trooper Prince and Trooper Keefe that you noticed the back right taillight in the middle, quote, in the middle, your words, was broken and a piece of the metal encasement was pushed forward?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't say that the taillight was completely shattered, correct?
Correct.
You didn't say that the entire lens was missing, correct?
Correct.
You said it was broken in the middle. Is that
Yes.
right? And then you described today that a square piece was missing.
Yes, that's the piece I was referring to in the
Okay.
middle.
Just in the middle of the taillight, though. That was how you described it.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to shift gears for a quick second and talk about a March 7th, 2023 text message with victim witness advocate Steve Nelson. Do you remember communicating? You don't have to know the exact date, but if you do, fine. Do you remember communicating in March of 2023 with victim witness advocate Steve Nelson about the Ring camera at One Meadows?
I don't know the exact date, but yes.
Okay. Is it true that you contacted him to inform him that the O'Keefes needed to replace or wanted to replace the driveway Ring camera, that same Ring camera that we just literally saw through that perspective
Yes.
of you arriving?
Yes.
Did Mr. Nelson indicate that he believed that would be fine to replace that Ring camera if the O'Keefes wished to do that?
I don't remember if he said it would be fine, but At some point, they were told they could replace it. It had broken. It wasn't working.
Did he indicate that he would check with DDA Adam Lally and then get back to you?
I don't know.
At some point, you were informed that the O'Keefes had the green light or the go-ahead to replace that Ring camera at One Meadows. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And then ultimately, you then relayed that to the O'Keefes that they had the green light. You've talked to somebody at the DA's office, and they said, yeah, go ahead and replace the camera, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever receive any kind of response from the DA's office either before or after you relayed this information to the O'Keefes to say, wait, hold on, we need to do a reconstruction, we need to make sure that the camera is in the exact same spot that it was at the time of the incident?
No.
Any communication like that?
No.
So the communication that you got was, yep, go ahead and replace it, it's no big deal.
Correct.
Okay. And ultimately, you learned that the O'Keefes did, in fact, replace that Ring camera.
Correct.
You have already described your relationship, at least in part, with Canton Police Officer Sergeant Michael Lank, correct?
Yes.
He is friends with you?
His daughter is friends with my daughter.
You're friendly with the family?
Yes.
Okay. And you're aware that he's also friends with the Albert family?
No. Well, no.
Were you aware that Michael Lank grew up with Chris Albert?
I was not.
Have you ever been in a social setting with both the Lanks and the Alberts?
No.
You're aware, obviously, you were at the scene. He was the first officer to respond to the crime scene at 34 Fairview on January 29th after Officer Seraph and after Mulaney arrived. Right? Then it was Sergeant Lank.
I don't know which order. I did see Sergeant Lank there, yes.
Was he the, excuse me a second. I was just reminded, you indicated that you don't remember the date of that text communication between yourself and Mr. Nelson.
No, I don't remember the date.
Would it refresh your recollection if you looked at a text message between the two of you about the subject of the Ring camera?
Sure.
Okay.
Do I need to know the date?
May I approach? I need to know the date.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Okay. I'll tell you what, this incident has done wonders for all the Ring cameras in the area that have either been missing, not working, need to be replaced. It's amazing.
And the Ring cameras at Fairview, there are none anywhere.
Not to mention the Sallyport snafu.
Right.
Okay, I'm trying to get back to the grand jury because Mr. Jackson took a bit of a side trip.
Chico, they indicated after you gave your statement that if you wish to provide anything additional, now is the time to do it.
Objection.
Sustained.
Were you informed that you were limited on time in that interview? Meaning, we got to get this done, we're leaving, we're out of time.
No.
They didn't cut you off, correct?
No.
They didn't tell you that they had a limited amount of information that they wanted and then they were just going to leave, correct?
I don't remember. I don't recall.
As a matter of fact, they told you that anything you wanted to provide to them, provide it. Give them as much detail as you could, correct?
I don't recall.
Okay. You just read the last statement that these troopers indicated, correct? If there's anything further she could recall that would be useful, please provide that information.
Object.
Sustained.
John, may we approach?
Yes.
So you can tell that old Mr. Brennan, Your Honor, we approach.
Right. Because, I mean, because, you know, let me just tell people that's supposedly because it's hearsay, right? What she was told by somebody else supposedly hearsay. But he's not really
Prepping
using
for your
it
interview.
the truth of the matter. He's using it for what she understood that she could come back and talk to them at any time. It's not really for the truth of the matter. It's for what she believed.
It's for, as I used to say, the impact on the hearer.
Right.
You know, it's a state of mind, non-hearsay use. There's also probably a hearsay exception if you want to work hard to find one, but it's not hearsay. It's not offered for truth of the matter. So
Right.
I don't know if Brendan was just nervous because this subject makes it very clear that, and Jackson did a great job of circling back after the objection was initially sustained to lay the foundation for. You had every opportunity at that time to tell them everything you could possibly know and remember, and now new stuff's blooming.
Right.
And it wasn't because you weren't given time to tell them everything you knew then. Maybe it's because, I don't know, you're getting creative now. That's the tenor of this back and forth.
Putting a timeline together, correct?
We were putting a timeline together at the request of Mrs. O'Keefe.
And Jennifer
Oh,
McCabe, was helping
Jennifer
you with
McCabe.
the timeline, and you were helping her with the timeline.
Yes, we were putting together the events of what had happened.
So she was
This is just, this is 101 in the Jen McCabe School of Witness Preparation. She was in that class at the time.
helping you, and you were helping her, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So both of you were assisting in each other's memories, correct?
Yes.
I remember this, and you remember this, and okay, now I remember this, correct?
When you contaminate memories by doing this.
Sure, you
contaminate
can
memories by
fabricate
doing
them
this.
even.
Right,
Yeah.
right, absolutely.
Obviously, that would help influence your memory, going
Yes.
over the event with someone else, correct?
Yeah.
So what's on that timeline, you would agree, is not completely independent, your memory. It's a combination of your memory and Jennifer McCabe's memory. Isn't that right?
Yes.
See, to her, that's kind of innocuous, but it ain't.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay, we're still working our way back to the grand jury stuff, which is...
That's what's so brilliant about this, right? He's not coming at her directly. He's circling all around, so all around. And that's why he's able to get what he's able to get when he goes there.
Yeah. He's obviously, he knows what the hell he's doing.
Than Jennifer McCabe in the house.
Her sister was there writing down the timeline for
Who's
us.
that?
Her sister, Denise.
Denise? So she was scribing the timeline as you and Jennifer McCabe were creating
She
it?
was writing it down as we were remembering things.
Right. And the three of you were doing this together, sort of communally.
Yes.
She would say something, then you would say something, then it would spark something that she would say, and back and forth, correct?
Yes.
How is it that Trooper Proctor got a hold of you? Did you call him or did he call you?
I think he was on the phone with Jen, and I asked to speak to him.
So Trooper Proctor got a hold of you through talking to Jen McCabe.
Well, I asked to speak to him, but yes.
Right. Was that interview recorded, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
The fourth time you met with police was February 2nd, the very next day, at about 12:08 p.m. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Do you remember signing a consent form for your phone?
Yes.
Was that the next day after this interview with Trooper Prince and Trooper
I don't know
Keith?
what day it was. It was right after Karen was arraigned for the first time. Jen and I met with them and both handed our phones over willingly.
So you've just answered my question. So when you met with police, whatever the date was, it was a few days later, you met with police. You had a fourth time, you were still in the presence of Jennifer McCabe when you met with police.
Yes.
And handed your phone over, is that right?
Yes.
And she handed her phone over, is that right?
Yes.
And the two of you were together when you signed your consent forms, is that right?
Yes.
The fifth time you told your story was in front of a grand jury, is that
Here
right?
we go.
I don't know.
Do you remember testifying in front of a grand jury?
I do.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Before you testified at that grand jury, just physically, you were brought into an anteroom where you waited to be called by ADA Adam Lally, correct?
Yes.
Who was in that anteroom with you just before you gave your testimony?
My husband and Jen and Matt McCabe.
So Jennifer McCabe was with you yet again just before you gave
Yeah.
official testimony under oath concerning this case and concerning the incident.
Correct.
Ms. Roberts, when was the last time you've spoken to Jennifer McCabe before you testified in this trial?
In this morning.
I think he just got lucky there.
Did you discuss your
He's
testimony?
probably shocked.
No.
So you and Ms. McCabe, who became friends because of this incident,
Correct.
talked as recently as this morning before your testimony,
Correct.
and your testimony now is that you did not discuss anything about what you're doing here.
No.
or what you're going
I
to
did
testify
not. She
to?
called to wish me good luck today.
When did you talk to her the last time before this morning?
I don't know, maybe a couple of days ago. I don't remember.
Within days of you taking the stand yesterday, correct?
Yes.
Did you ever? May I have this one?
Yes.
Ms. Roberts, I'm going to ask you. To take a look at, actually, let me ask it a different way. Did you say that you did or did not recall texting with Jen McCabe during the course of that January 29th interview with state police? Do you recall that or no?
No.
Okay.
During the interview, I didn't text anybody.
Okay. Are you saying you didn't text anybody, or you don't recall?
I don't recall. I don't think I had I wouldn't be texting somebody if I was being interviewed by the state police.
Right. Okay. Would it refresh your recollection to take a look at a report of text messages?
Sure.
May I approach you?
Yes.
You get to a certain point as a witness where you think he's got something every time he brings it up, right? Like, what am I forgetting? And what's he gonna nail me with? And it changes the whole demeanor of the witness. Right. Drop my water.
May I, Your Honor?
Yes.
Take a look. There's two tabs. Take a look at the tabs and the data across the two tabs, if you don't mind.
You got our attention, whatever it was that he accidentally dropped.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in no rush. Okay. May I?
Yes.
Take this back. Well, with your permission, Mr. Brennan,
Okay. Jurors, feel free to stand up and stretch if you'd like. And I forgot to tell you, anytime we're at sidebar, please feel free to stand up and stretch, okay?
When I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I could stay up and stretch. Oh.
You too.
That was quicker than we thought, Judge. May I proceed?
Yes.
Okay. Did you take a look at this document?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that there were two text messages at around the time of your interview with those two troopers?
No.
Do you recall, as you sit here, texting Ms. McCabe that the state troopers were arriving or they're just getting there?
No.
Do you recall Ms. McCabe texting you anything back about calling me after?
No.
Okay. Did you, in fact, different question, did you, in fact, call Ms. McCabe right after the interview and talk to her?
I don't know.
Have you ever testified that at the scene, Miss Reed was seated in the back of a patrol car along with Jennifer McCabe, and you were standing just outside the car, and there was an interaction among the three of you?
Yes.
Have you ever
Alert.
testified, or have you ever stated in any particular, that during that interaction, Karen asked the three of you to pray?
Yes.
Have you ever said or testified that during that interaction where you're seated, where they are seated in the back of the patrol car and Ms. Reed asked you to pray, that Ms. Reed said to Jennifer McCabe, Google hypothermia.
No,
You've never said that.
I've never said that.
You testified at the grand jury on April 26th. Is that right? April 26th, 2022?
I do not
Date
know.
Right? Does that sound right? April 26th, 2022?
I have no idea.
Late April 2022, does that sound right?
I don't know. It was 2022.
You testified under oath,
Many people
correct?
testify grand jury. You kind of usually remember who
Yes.
testified.
Swore the same oath that you swore here.
Yes.
Tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but guilty of perjury. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I needed.
Just wonder what's twisting in her head during these long wait and sees.
Right. You know, they teach you in negotiation that if there's silence, people want to jump in and say something when you do.
Is it your testimony that you have never said that Karen told Jen to Google hypothermia, or that you don't recall saying that?
I don't recall saying that.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at portion of your grand jury testimony from that day?
It might.
May I approach?
Yes.
Yeah, in those negotiations, first one that speaks usually loses.
Thank you.
Sure.
Now what am I going to say? Because clearly I said that. I
If
think
you
when
could read on to page 83 as well.
when she's told about, you realize this was under penalty of perjury, and then he said something about punishable by prison time, she said, I didn't know that. Hold it.
Yep. I testified. I didn't hear it, but I was told that she was asked to Google it.
You just go.
You testified under oath at the grand jury that at some point Karen was in back of the police cruiser, correct?
Yep.
Objection.
No, I'll allow that question.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what you told the grand jury?
Yes.
And isn't it true that at some point during the course of your testimony under oath, you said that Karen was in the back of the police cruiser?
Yes.
And then you went on to describe that Karen and Jen and I were standing outside, and she made us all start holding hands and starting to pray.
Yes.
I mean, what, the she being Karen Reed, correct?
Yes.
And at this point, they had lifted John up and taken him onto the gurney, correct? That's
I don't
what you
know.
described.
I don't recall.
Okay. I'm going to do this again, just so we're clear.
So he is cementing in her mind, and now in the jury's recollection through her, that she knew specifically what was happening all around her, right? That's when they were lifting Officer John
Yes.
O'Keefe onto the stretcher. Very specific point in time. That's when this conversation is taking place.
At the bottom?
She swore to.
Okay.
We ain't seen nothing yet.
It's the slow
Yep. I say I think. so I'm not
I have a
positive.
question for you.
Okay.
Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. And you testified basically that you think, at least that's what you were telling the grand jurors, that you
Yep.
think that was the point at which they lifted John up
Yes.
and moved him into the ambulance, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
And then you were asked a question, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, correct?
Objection.
Do you recall that?
I did not hear the question about Google being asked.
That's not my question. May I ask? May I inquire?
Just repeat that question.
Sure. Isn't it true that you were next asked by Mr. Lally in front of the grand jury, quote, what, if anything, did she, Miss Reed, ask Miss McCabe while they were sitting in the back of the cruiser that you heard, end quote. Remember being asked that question?
No.
Now it's good because the jury's saying, wait, just read to you. What do you mean? How did you not remember that?
We wondered how Mr. Lally was going to be involved in this case. It
Poor
made me
guy.
through these flashbacks.
Although he should be standing up and
Look at line 16.
Well, that's a good question. Was he asking her at that time during the grand jury that something he did not know?
and the fact that they let this sit here for another year or 2 years, knowing that this is not true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection? That was the question that you were asked?
Yes.
Okay. And in response to that question, you stated, quote, at one point she asked her to Google hypothermia and how long Google hypothermia. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Oh, yes. We got a little yes, a little two there.
That was very detailed. You'll agree that that's a very detailed and specific recount of an event. You recounted where you were, back of a cruiser, or they were in the back of a cruiser, correct?
Yep.
You recorded or reported the time. It was right around the time that you thought they were lifting John up and scooped him up onto the gurney, correct?
Yep. I thought it was about that time. I wasn't sure.
Location,
I'm sorry, I didn't get that answer. You were talking over each other.
That's my mistake.
What was your answer, Ms.
I
Roberts?
thought it was about the time they lifted him up, but I wasn't sure.
Okay. You were very detailed about who was there. It was you. It was Jen. It was my client, Karen
Yes.
Reed, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
You were so detailed that you talked about where you were standing next to the cruiser open door, correct?
Yes.
What the others were doing, holding hands and praying, is that right?
Yes.
And the actual words used. You were as detailed about all of that as the actual words used. She asked her to Google hypothermia and how long, and then you stopped, Google hypothermia, end quote, correct?
Correct.
You will agree, at least for that purpose, you painted a very, very detailed picture in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
Yeah.
Except it's not true, is it?
I did not hear her ask that. I was told she was asked that. In
The
the
answer to my question, Ms. Roberts, and I'm not a trick question, what you told the grand jurors was not true. You never heard her, my client, ask anyone to Google anything, did you?
I did not.
And yet, that's what you testified to under oath, under penalty of perjury, in front of the grand jury, didn't you?
I did.
And the reason you did that, the reason that you said that false statement was because someone told you to say it, correct?
Object.
Is that, I'm going to let her answer that.
Nobody told me to say it. I knew it happened at that time,
How did you
which
know
is
it
why I
happened?
said it.
How did you know it happened, Miss Roberts, if no one told you it happened?
Because we wrote a timeline. We already spoke about
So
that.
the timeline that Jennifer McCabe helped you with, that influenced your testimony in front of the grand jury, correct? Obviously.
I was telling what happened in the back of the cruiser.
The timeline
can answer.
you wrote,
So when you ask a question, let her answer, okay?
the timeline you wrote, with Jennifer McCabe's help, influenced your testimony to testify in front of the grand jurors to a statement that you never heard, correct?
Yes.
You were later asked about that statement in another investigation, by another investigator or set of investigators, correct?
I don't know.
Were you interviewed by a different law enforcement agency?
This is where
a
you can't
separate
talk
law
about the
enforcement
feds,
agency from the
right?
Massachusetts State Police at any time?
Yes.
And you were told that to lie to those agents would be a crime, correct?
Yes.
Punishable by prison, correct?
I was not told that.
They asked you whether or not you heard Karen Reed ever say anything to Jennifer McCabe about Googling anything, correct?
I don't know.
Isn't it true that you told them what you've just now told us, which is, I did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google searches?
I don't recall.
Would it refresh your recollection to look at a copy?
She's
of
making it
that
worse because now
interview?
she's got to look at the interview. She's going to say exactly what Jackson just said that she said.
Yeah, and then she gets to the
Then she gets the
ridiculous excuse that somebody had to give her. Yep, Karen's helping out. I mean, some of the jurors in trial one didn't like that.
Yes.
I'm going to ask you to take a look at the entire document, just to familiarize yourself with it, if you don't mind, including the front page. And don't answer anything about the document until I ask you a question, if you don't mind, please.
Sure.
Becky.
This is where I think there's an ethical duty of the prosecutors that Deb should have grave concerns here. They know now, especially when there's a second interview, that the grand jury testimony was a lie. We don't know when she testified in the first trial to know that whether or not she then repeated that, whether that's considered a subordinate of perjury. I think there's a lot of
Mr. Roberts,
issues
do you
here, and
recognize
this is
that
where
as being a
Deb should
report
be
of
concerned.
an interview that-
Judge Beverly, you know.
You were later asked about that statement in another investigation, by another investigator
I
or
think I
set of
just backed it up a
investigators,
few seconds.
correct?
I don't know.
Were you interviewed by a different law enforcement agency, a separate law enforcement agency from the Massachusetts State Police at any time?
Yes.
And you were told that to lie
We just
to
heard this,
those
right?
agents would be a crime,
I like this
correct?
point, though.
Yes.
Punishable by prison, correct?
I was not told that.
Yeah, so your point, go ahead and make your point while I'm queuing this back up to where
Yeah, I think that
happened.
somewhere, I don't know when that other Massachusetts interview or the other investigative interview occurred, whether it was before the first trial, after the first trial. But the prosecutors knew that her testimony before the grand jury was
Take a
false.
look at the
It
entire
was a lie. It was a misrepresentation, whether she wants to say she misunderstood the question or not. No one from the prosecutor has come forward and corrected that. No one corrected it before she got on the stand today. They let her get on the stand, and Judge Cannoni is so interested in the ethics of people, should be interested in the ethics of the prosecution, because they're the ones who have an ethical duty to justice. And by failing to correct that, they let this one possibly get indicted, and they're letting her give false testimony.
Yep. And so for all the pearl clutching, for all of her suspicions, this is not even a suspicion. This is a flat ass lie that's been admitted to on the stand.
Right.
So anyway, we do know, I was looking for the exact verbiage, but now there will be a jury instruction in this case that any witness found to be false in one part of their testimony can be deemed false in anything you want to disbelieve. So do they discount her entirely because of this? Who knows?
your document, just to familiarize yourself with it, if you don't mind, including the front page. And don't answer anything about the document until I ask you a question, if you don't mind, please.
Sure.
Becky.
There was a
Ms. Roberts, do you
clue.
recognize that as being a report of an interview that you conducted?
I've never seen this before, but
Understood. You may never have seen it, but does it remind you that that's
Yes.
a report of a conversation you had with another law enforcement
Yes.
agency? I'm going to ask you to turn to page 7.
And if you lie to those people, you can go to jail. We know who those people are. You and I do. You can go to prison, not jail.
And if you look, there's a small paragraph, about 2 paragraphs up from the bottom. I think I may have put a little blue dot by it, but I'm not sure. Please read that to yourself.
So, you know, with some of the words
Correct.
ringing in her head, prison, 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 she's now going over this document.
She's not looking so smug as she did before.
Done?
yep.
Thank you.
You know, she's looking
May I
kind of
approach?
vulnerable.
Yes.
Roberts. Ms. Roberts, does that refresh your recollection about what you told these investigators?
Yes.
And what you told them was you, quote, did not hear Karen Reed ask Jennifer McCabe to conduct any Google
That is
search.
correct.
And you went on to say you saw McCabe on her phone.
I'll allow it.
You saw McCabe on her phone, but you did not hear Karen ask Jennifer to Google anything.
Correct.
So what you told the grand jurors was in fact false.
I misunderstood Mr. Lally's question.
Got it. Thank you.
Go back.
Okay.
Got it.
Got it.
Got you.
Misunderstood, Mr. Lally. Oh, sure, you misunderstood the Lally question. When it was finally confronted, but let's assume for the moment, let's give her the benefit of the doubt, because somebody came after me and said, "Oh, she said she misunderstood." You know that? No, I don't know that at all. I think she lied to the grand jury. That's my opinion.
Of course she did.
All right.
Why did she do
All
it?
right.
Because she is a graduate of the Jen McCabe School of Witness Preparation, and she got that lesson down.
But assuming everyone got that, they got this, the feds, this was turned over afterwards. The prosecution had a duty to correct that. They had a duty before she got on the stand to correct that, not to put her on the stand, let her repeat the same thing, or open with Jen McCabe is Karen Reed calls these Google searches, because Karen Reed was directing everyone to do these Google searches. They didn't do that. And so I'm asking you, Judge Beverly Canoni, flat out, and if you want to cut this tomorrow, cut this, okay? But I'm asking you, Judge Canoni, flat out, when we teach ethics at Harvard to those young students at the trial advocacy workshop, when some of them are going to be prosecutors, don't we teach them that they have a duty to justice, they have a duty to truth, and shouldn't the prosecution have come forward? And since they did not come forward and say that, and they have misrepresented things to the jury, why don't you have the same level of concern, and why don't you go sanctioning those prosecutors? Why doesn't Mr. Lally, who's been seated in that courtroom, stand up there and Mr. Lally say, this, by the way, Hank Brennan, when you opened to the jury, letting the jury believe that Jennifer McCabe was ordered by Karen Reed to do those Google searches, why don't you stand up and say that was not true?
Yeah, we know why, but I know your question's rhetorical. We know why, because she doesn't want to, because it would be helpful for the defense. And it's also important to know, we're going to hear from Jen McCabe personally, directly, that she heard Karen Reed ask the Google search request.
That's the way out, right? That's going to be
that's
their way out.
exactly right. Because they're going to just say, well, we had other testimony from the person who actually heard it. It's unfortunate that Ms. Roberts didn't understand the question and incorporated Jennifer McCabe's understanding and hearing into her response. That's how it gets a little messy. But I can't wait to hear Jen McCabe go through this again and start talking about, as we've talked about, how you conflate. I'm stealing some of Jackson's words. How you conflate hypothermia with how long to die in the cold. How do you twist that? If in fact she said hypothermia, in your brain, how does that become how to die in the cold? I don't know. Okay.
To make it count, what does a real ethical witness prep consist of? Well, we know it's to tell the truth, but it's not to have them make excuses or give them possible excuses to what they could possibly say when they get caught in the absolute lie here. And that's absolutely, awful. By the way, we have a new subscriber, Britt Happens. I know everyone's welcome, Britt, and welcome, please. Absolutely.
Yep. And I've seen some of Brit Happen stuff. Good stuff. If you haven't checked, check that out.
Laudner and Amber get the 5 Justice Serve TV memberships. I have to keep ranting. Thank you, Laudner and Amber. And this is something I just put up there. I wanted to say, she could be in shock, but she called Karen Reed earlier in her testimony crazy. She was crazy, right?
That's what she said to Jen McCabe at the scene when she was frantic about what was happening, did happen, could have happened. Yeah, she was crazy.
Yeah, she was crazy.
Just sounded mean when she said it, though. When she was recounting it, I could see how that would happen in the real world. And you're telling somebody who knows the person, she's just crazy. She's just out of her head, right? Because of what's happening. But how she said it on the stand was just mean.
And then later, by the way, on the stand here, when I guess there's a rehabilitation, which was actually also really kind of funny, because I think that's where he said it didn't influence you, right? Her interview, influenced her interview.
He Freudian slipped it. Yeah.
And then when she gets off the stand, the judge, and I think Miss Shorty clipped this, the judge said, "Thank you, Miss McCabe." Oh, Miss Roberts.
Same thing. I mean, it's the same thing.
And then at one point when Jackson comes after her, she actually goes with it's like I anticipate
like a snarl, like a dog fight,
like a dog snarl twice. Okay, she was so.
Yeah. Well, now she's been cross-examined. She can check that off her bucket list. So anyway, very interesting day in court today. Tomorrow, who knows what might happen? We figure we're going to see more of the first responder that didn't finish. I don't think Mr. Whitley finished today.
No, I don't think he finished either. And I wonder if he testified before the grand jury, because I know there's a sequestration order in effect. However, I mean, if he watches what happened to this witness by adding what he added in his testimony, which is Jeremy was Starkey, which appears nowhere, not even in his first trial, right? All these things happen to be appearing in this trial.
It's because your memory is enhanced just by being in that geographic region. So I'm looking forward to picking up a few IQ points and memory tricks tomorrow when I'm back up in Dedham. And so we'll see what happens.
Don't get arrested.
I think you want me to get arrested. Let's, who are you kidding? Whatever happens, happens. We're there to report on the story. What is the big deal with these idiots? Anyway, we'll find out. We'll find out. So as I was listening to you discussing how the prosecution had an obligation, I just kept saying, you got to do the right thing. You got to do the right thing. And they did not do the right thing. And at a certain point, that's a problem, ethically, professionally, and legally. So I will say, unless you got something else to add, you got something else to add?
Well, I just want to note that DC PNW is a new subscriber here.
That's nice. Thank you so much.
And before we go, I want to just give everyone time to please hit that like button, the share button, the subscribe button, and then you'll hit that notify all button. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. We do have a members page. We do have a merch page. I mean, I'm like a shopaholic right now with the merch page. But
yes, thank goodness for that.
Because I know I have to do a lot of shopping so that when I come up to Dedham to get you out of jail, I can be wearing all my Justice Serve TV stuff and my mug and all that stuff.
Cash only bail, please.
Yeah, cash only.
Did you already do this one? I don't know if you did this one or not. Straight from Jen's playbook?
I did not.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I think it was briefly, but not. I didn't give it the dignity that it deserved at the very end because when the judge then called her Jen McCabe, there you go.
I mean, it's just Domino. Did you want to weigh in before we get out of here? Did you? Come here.
Domino's here. Okay.
Hop up. Come on. Hop up. There you go.
Domino. The 50%
like, I've had enough. I'm out of here. Okay, so until tomorrow, whatever happens.
So we'll probably see about 1 o'clock-ish.
About 100 o'clock, yeah.
About 100 o'clock, about 1 o'clock-ish when they take lunch, see what's going on, see what's happening. I should be stationary in upstate by then, and you should be stationary in, I wouldn't even say it.
In shackles, you were going to say. Okay, try to do the right thing.
I'm Linda Kenny Pod. That's Michael Bryant. Hit that like button before you go. We'll see you tomorrow.
Riding flames, they try.